डेमोक्रेसी भन्ने बित्तिकै मनमा एक किसिमको आकांक्षा, एक किसिमको व्यग्रता, एक किसिमको समर्पण किन आउँछ भने यो फर मिलिनिया, फर thousands of years, the very idea of democracy has motivated people, attracted people immensely. So many people aspired to be Democrat or wanted to live under democracy means that a different experience were there. And it's very hard to find a kind of singular definition of democracy, what it is. How do we define democracy has been always a problematic, because many people believed in it, because there were different eyes and different minds glaring towards democracy. It is a scientific idea? Yes, if you look into in terms of procedural matter. If democracy, if you conceived as a procedural matter, yes, it's a process, it's a design. It tries to, minimize many unintended consequences of human lives. But if you look at an idea, ideas are always elusive. And I have been always grappling with the idea whether to consider democracy as a process or idea. As an idea, it's always elusive in a sense that whenever you try to capture it, it escapes. Because it has been experimented in many ways. People, in the name of democracy or being a Democrat, lived in different settings and different milieus, different cultural frames. But unify the idea of democracy has always fascinated everyone. Today, this generation is socialized in a very different way than my generation, which is the 3 generations earlier. This generation is very much technologically, well-versed with the new technologies, what is to be digital technologies. And the world of digital technology has surpassed all the earlier technologies and the ways of thinking. Earlier thinking were a kind of vertical. No doubt, the algebra was invented many years ago in Arabic world or Greek world, where idea of an algorithm invented the infinite possibilities of problem solving. And today, what we see in a digital technology is the idea of an algorithm finding its best possibilities. In that sense, my generation always raised in a very hierarchical manner. For example, I know many of you, if are from well-versed with the basic science, if you take the idea of periodic table, all the chemicals that are available are classified into one table. Is it possible to capture whatever exists in a physical term, their chemical properties in a periodic table? Periodic table is a very much hierarchical ideas. Hierarchy means that it begins somewhere at the top and ends in somewhere below. Whereas the idea of a new algorithm that we find in a digital platforms and system is that it can also move horizontally. If something can move horizontally, means there is infinite possibilities. For example, if you open up, and I'll link this with how your idea of a democracy and my idea of a democracy in an intergenerational understanding is changing, and what has remained the same. And that particular variable, what remains same, binds the idea of a democracy together. Whether you talk about 25,000 years ago when Plato and Aristotle talked about democracy, and today Hari Sharma or anybody in this room talks about democracy. Idea of an algorithm is there's infinite possibilities of moving horizontal. Information has become readily available, and possibility of questioning those information has become really important element of today's innovations. For example, if you search anything on internet, web-based technological things, that there's a possibility if you hyphenate it or bold something, that would take you somewhere else. Earlier, what happened, even the story that I was just describing outside, when we wrote a story or a kind of information, it was packed into one page. But these days, with the help of a technology, what you can take every word and link it with a hyperlink and move into the different directions. So what I'm saying is that the democracy which talked about in my time or earlier time was a very much of an organized principle. Today, democracy means possibilities, many alternatives. But in fact, democracy as a many possibilities and alternatives have been captured by those who own the power and who own the technology. This is where democracy is in danger today. By that means, yes, it has been proliferated. Many people can understand the way they wanted to understand it. Okay? The people from United States to America to Papua New Guinea, they experiment all kinds of democracy, and there is all kinds of possibilities out there. There's no longer now the model that is available long back. They say that England is a mother of or father of democracy. I don't want to be a gender discussion here. Many people say mother of democracy, maybe father of democracy, who knows. But you have a different experimentation all over the world in the name of democracy. नेपालमा पनि हामीले प्रजातन्त्र भनेका छौँ, हामीले प्रजातन्त्र भन्थ्यौँ, भाइ बहिनीहरूको जेनेरेसनमा आएर लोकतन्त्र भन्दैछ। तर इन्ट्रेस्टिङ के छ भने दुईटैलाई ट्रान्सलेट गर्यो भने डेमोक्रेसी भन्छ। वेस्टमा एउटा डेमोक्रेसी शब्दले वर्षौँदेखि 3000 इयर्सदेखि तपाईँको सर्टन इमेजिनेसन क्याप्चर गर्यो भने हाम्रो लिभड एक्सपिरियन्सले के भन्न थाल्यो भने लोकतन्त्र हो कि जनतन्त्र हो कि गणतन्त्र हो कि हैन। फर इक्जाम्पल पिपल लाइक मी हु वेन्ट जेल एन्ड एक्जाइल इन द नेम अफ प्रजातन्त्र. When I say today Prajatantra, I'm seen as a conservative. In my imagination, always there is a king, therefore I'm a Praja. Therefore, my understanding of democracy and current imagination of Lokatantra, Lok means people's democracy, is completely different. So what I'm saying is this is a riddle with a lot of definitional. A lot of experiment, personal experience-wise also a lot of differences. If somebody says, Prajatantra, and I say, he's an old-timer. And if somebody says Lokatantra is a new person, he has a different radical imagination or something. So what I'm saying is that the democracy is so dear to us. If we take this Lokatantra, Prajatantra distinction, you would see that it's also riddled with a definitional problem. Definitional problem in terms of, in democracy, what is the basic unit of democracy? I'll come back a little later on digital democracy, but let me go into the first traditional way of defining democracy. What is the unit of democracy? Is it a state? Is it a society? Is it a family? Even in a family, we talk about democratic values. For example, when you take decision in the family, in some earlier generation, being our patriarchal society, our fathers, or myself like a male who took a lot of decisions. In some societies, within our traditional societies, mothers or women take more decisions than men. It is a matriarchal or it's a collective decisions. So by the way, again, democracy here is a procedural matter. How one take collective decision in the given composite or given collective. Be it a family, be it a community, be it a state level. How does we as unit of collectives take decision? So it's a very abstract way of putting at democracy. I'm not saying anything here. But what is the unit of family? Unit of family is a membership. What is the unit of a community? Community is a society membership. Again, membership. If it is users community, users group, users community, or it's a geographical community that they become. In politics and democracy, who is the member? Everyone. And how do you define it's a democracy? How does you define it's a... Then democracy becomes a little abstract. It's not a family, not a group of family, not the collectives of family. It's not the religious community. Religious community, you become what? In a Sai Baba community, it's a devotee. They call it devotee. Whether you are in anywhere in the world, whether you're in a Mustang, whether you're in Tarai, if you are in a Sai community, everybody is devotee, even if devotee is not your language. If you are in a, what you call Vishwa Hindu Parishad or current BJP, you are Bhakt. So even in a religious denomination, the membership unit is completely different. So what about the democracy's basic unit or participatory membership? What has been, there are different ways of looking at it. In olden times, when the Plato and Aristotle in Western Hemisphere or the Western world, practicing democracy or talking about democracy, those who have a property, those who were male were unit of democracy. They could only participate in the name of democracy. From that on, male, and if you look into the encyclopedias and the old text, you will see the white loincloth, long bearded, bald-headed, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero type of people talking to each other. Therefore, democracy and rhetoric politics for that matter, has a big relationship. Because you need to have a certain qualities. You need to have certain information to participate in activities called what is democracy. So what does that mean? That means democracy at that time was tailored around idea of a virtue. If you have a virtue in Nepali we call good to participate, good to you have a property, rich people, male, forget about female, or slaves or outsider. So in that sense, if you look into the trajectories of democracy, democracy was what we think today is a most inclusive system. In today's imagination, you can't imagine democracy very exclusionary. You think democracy is a very broad and it includes everybody. Those who can speak, those who cannot speak, those who are rich, those who are poor, those who are articulate, not articulate, those who are with the property, not property, male, female, foreigner, slaves, everybody. Those time, the same democracy, D-E-M-O-C-R-C-Y, whatever that is, that was conceptualized as a most inclusive system. Those who have a property, those who have male, those who can argue. Even Plato articulated that in his academy, those who do sing and dance can't be a member of democracy. You need to have a logic. You need to have a mathematics as a basic degree to participate in a Greek political system. Today, from that line, what was most inclusive system, we are imagining democracy as most inclusive. That exclusive, this is a very inclusive system. But in fact, democracy is never an inclusive. It's an imagination of inclusion. For example, in democracy, look at I think everybody's mind, I don't know how much you have followed Indian politics, which is very important to us here in Nepal. Mr. Modi, very articulate. Some people call him Feku. He does speak whatever comes to his mind, doesn't care about science and informations, but is very articulate, very good public communicator. He said in his first inaugural speech that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, now he added in third term, Sabka Vishwas. And Sabka Vishwas means everybody, taking along everybody and kind of ensuring trust on everybody, because he was practicing, all of us are practicing, very exclusionary democracy. Because his idea of a nation is a Hindu nation. He doesn't say, Indian constitution says it's a secular nation. But the kind of politics he practiced excluded, for example, in 300 plus, his representation in parliament, there's no single Muslim. And India has a 14% Muslim, more than 14% Muslim. And very foundation that the India was a multi-nation, multilingual, multiracial, multi-religious country, precisely because of that, India had to suffer partition. India was willing enough to take Muslim back. More Hindus came from Pakistan than more Muslim went from India to Pakistan in 1947. Now Modi is saying, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas. What does that mean? That means that the democracy, that's the rhetoric, and I will still to test whether Modi really practiced what he preached. The question that I'm saying is that democracy is a process, because we need to find how to settle this conflict resources, as I talked about families and other things, through a process. The election has become one of the major framework of democratic process. But election by themselves do not take substantive questions, for example, or plebiscites for that matter, or Janmat Sangraha for that matter. Look at Britain. Britain is a democracy. It's the best way to think whether to remain in England, remain within their own United Kingdom, or remain within the European Union or leave European Union. They went for referendum or election, which is the greatest form of democracy. But what happened? 3 days back, one of the most powerful prime minister of United Kingdom left the office crying. She was so vulnerable. And I was questioning, is democracy is about process? Can it solve the problem, complex problem that is we're solving? Unlike in the past where information was coming from the top to the bottom, there was certain leadership idea around the virtue. That idea of a virtue over the years, democracy which was very exclusive, it became more inclusionary by the way of including many people, many voices, many ideas, and it expanded its boundary. So, who safeguards the boundary of a democracy? Earlier, it was leadership with the virtues, parties with the virtues. Now, people like you have a different understanding and notions. By the way of participating, discharging your public responsibility, you go and vote. But that doesn't mean, that's what I'm questioning right now. Earlier, I didn't question. When I go vote, I said, I have given my mandate for such and such person and individuals or party for 5 years. That's my political responsibility. Now people are saying, as a free-thinking individuals and society members, once we go in every 5 years and vote, are we depositing our will for forever, or at least 5 years? Can we revisit that? Election is a game, or election is a process by which you need to elect somebody to manage your affairs. Does that mean, हिन्दीमा भन्छ नि गिरवी राख्ने अथवा धरौटी राख्ने, तपाईले आफ्नो सेल्फ, तपाईले आफ्नो भावना, तपाईले आफ्नो विश्वास 5 वर्षलाई धरौटी राख्नुभयो कि के गर्नुभयो? What about your idea of individual and self? What about the infinite possibility and questions that democracy in every society creates? Because at the heart of every democracy is a freedom of thinking. What about the challenging questions? Like in a family, in order to recognize the family order, structure, tradition, you maintain certain level of discipline. But when it comes to the question of your autonomy and your independence, you question even your father, your mother. Without questioning, you haven't come to this point. You challenge your teacher in the classroom, therefore you move ahead. You break the frontiers, then you can move ahead. If you become docile and subjugated, you cannot progress. This is what human history has told. Be it an individual, be it a collective. A classroom democracy like yours is a very important. Teacher is a facilitator rather than the custodian of knowledge. Similarly, politician is custodian of your aspirations and will, not the master. And you have to differentiate between custodian and the master. So lately, democracy in the name of vote has been hijacked by few ambitious because of the technology. For example, this is where I was coming at the technology. And I don't hide my pretension, I'm an avid book reader. In my personal collection, there are 25,000 books. I don't know how to manage that. It has become quite a difficult task for me. Of late, what I found, I thought that I should read in a Kindle or tablet or iPad, whatever platform that is available. But what happened? I used to order book in the Kindle or Amazon, something like that. After a couple of months, I start getting solicitations or advice from them. Whenever I open my Kindle or whenever I open my laptop or iPad or whatever that is, they automatically suggest, hey Hari, this is a new book coming in. Now I've been dictated by them. Okay? Similarly, I also studied abroad and worked abroad. I use credit cards. When I swipe something to buy something, they know my shoe size, they know my brand. It's a very adult. I buy jockey for my undergarments. They would send me a new product whenever it comes. Shoe size, I wear Clark. which is a good brand. My father and my grandfather has been wearing because they were in the British Army. So I'm still love for the British brand. Whenever I open something to buy something online, automatically pops in. They dictate me where to go. Similarly, your Facebook, your internet account has been manipulated by the people in the power where you vote and how do you vote. And election has become a marketing tool for many. This is what Oxford Analytica controversy. This is what big data about democracy that the United States people are talking about. This is what's happening in US. You as an individual, a free soul-searching individual, first captivated by the collectives called family, then society, then the state, and suddenly by the powerful leaders and the resource people who, through the digital technology, captures your preferences and choices. If they can choose your what do you eat, what brand you wear, what kind of supermarket you go, what kind of vegetables you eat, what kind of diets you are in, whether you are on a keto diet or a protein diet or whatever diet, now internet has been, this digital platform has been dictating. So and then election has been, which is a hallmark of democracy for so many years. We thought that the free and fair election is the only way to let the people to decide their destiny for the time-bound period. I'm not in the business of forecasting, but what I'm seeing in and around our countries and the world is that the people who are currently winning will win for another 5, 6 consecutive terms. Gone are the days that every year you change people and individual, you like or didn't like. Because there's a lot of manipulations in big data. Without knowing it. Without knowing it. Your and mine personal data are for sale. This is where democracy and disagreement is important. This is where lone voice is important. We need to be careful to protect our voices of disagreement. In present day India, I think, if democracy does not talk about minorities, minority of voice, minority of issues, or alternative, minority voices can be alternative voices. If we talk about only majoritarian, or think about dystopian in A Handmaid's Tale, very interesting Canadian novel, that everybody look alike same. If you see in the movie Avatar, where everybody looks like the same, the blue color person like a Hanumanji or something like that. Everybody is same. Technology is treating us not as a freewheeling individuals, but as a subject, as a one user. You become username. You not become your personal name. And they say that don't put your name on a username. What kind of name is that? You don't put your name on your username. I think technology and the power is making you invisible so that they can control and govern you. And how do we keep our voice, our independent free will? You may be wondering why I'm painting these very big pictures, because to provoke you, to think about where is your autonomy, where is your choice? How do you have the capacity to claim your own destiny? Earlier we told that you are master of your destiny. I have daughters like you, the same age. One is doing PhD currently in history, other is an undergraduate student. Both are girls. They are very independent minded when they come to one-to-one conversation. But I worry that will they able to manage their destiny on their own? We have all trapped into big power global data and democracy, which is very much what you call populist democracy, where there is no alternative voices. So if there is no alternative voice, if there is no critical voice, if there is no individual autonomy, forget about democracy in 21st century. You will be managed by somebody else. You will be directed by somebody else. I was always wondering, I worked in the Prime Minister's office long back, Rajendra ji knows about it. In the beginning, when mobile came in, the Israelis' technology was here, big, heavy mobiles. It was pride to carry that around. And I always wonder, if I was talking to Rajendraji or Pandeyji, if phone comes in, and then I said, excuse me, your phone uthai halu bhai. And I always question myself. A person who is in front of me is more important, or somebody calling from outside is important. We always think that the somebody from outside, even if that person is Hariji khana khanu bhayo. के चाल्छ धेरै दिन भयो सन्चो भेटघाट भएन, and person is in front of you. I'm making their presence, turning their presence into absence and talking to somebody else using that technology, and picking up phone was more urgent than the addressing people in front of you. I think technology has already what you call subjugated us, enslaved us. It had made things easier. I walked up 4 stairs or 3 stairs up here within. If it was a lift, I would say, lift ma jao, ali moto manche chu. Technology enslaves you. And how do we fight the mega scale technological onslaught on democracy? This is what I'm saying. How do we protect democracy and disagreement by mean? How do we protect our individual autonomy and individual free will? तपाईं हामीलाई पढाएको पढ्न के हो भने सोच्न सक्ने बनाउनु हो नि त. तर सबै कुरो त्यही छ. सबै कुरो गुगलमा छ. अब Google is turning into a big university. Our students are no longer turning the pages, and so even if you Google something or Googling something, it's already there. Copy-paste is already there. Where is the originality thinking coming in? I'm worried that we have been enslaved by... That doesn't mean that I'm anti-technology. I use my iPhone quite often, and nowadays they have warned you that you have used so much time. Turn it off. Earlier it was for my use. Now they are using me. Okay, phone is using me rather than I'm using the phone. Anything I require, where to go and eat, I check the internet. Where do you get the good momos? Okay, or where do you get good sandwiches or Indian food, South Indian food? Good, you get the information, but you are hooked to it. I think protecting our autonomy in age of mass democracy and mass media or mass digitization is a pretty difficult task. And this is where question of dissent and disagreement comes in. I will give you one example, and I end my submission here. I could see notes being written down there. I'm mindful of my time. One of the most vulnerable time for the individuals are when they're crossing the boundaries. Be it a boundary of a country, be it a boundary of a personal morality, be it the boundary of a family moving into the society, going from one place to another, I think you became much more vulnerable. And technology and surveillance has curtailed that, has enforced that boundary fear of boundary on us. You can't question when you cross some certain lines. For example, if you go to the airport, you cannot argue with the immigration officers. When you stop by the police officer, you can't ask what did I do wrong. Similarly, we are living with the political climate in this country and the reason. If you ask politicians, you didn't vote for me. You have no right to ask me. But I will rule in the name of majority that I got. And where is your idea of a disagreement autonomy? Can individuals speak against such a big, powerful machines? Somebody is nodding his head. But if you start questioning in your mind and utter out of your mouth, if somebody starts from here, have you seen the British football? The kind of slogans, the kind of cheering up comes from one other to the other end. I think if we start murmuring and murmur that into a noise, okay? Utterance into the noise is very important. So my plea to this group of young individuals who are looking for a future, best of luck, good luck, but don't zip your lips. Don't zip your mind, open it up and question. If you don't question, this is what Upanishad told us. Any Upanishad from Brihadaranyaka to Mandukya Upanishad, or any question answer that Plato and Aristotle did in the Greek philosophy, or any Kabir Bani that you read, question is important. Without question, democracy, which we think is a very noisy, is suddenly turning very silent one. Therefore, my plea is that although we think we are very helpless in front of these gigantic machines and corporate worlds of technology and power, but if we start questioning it, we might get there where we haven't reached so far. Thank you very much.